Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, author of Visualizing Happiness in Every Area of Your Life and host of this podcast, Incredible Life Creator. And today I have with me Ann Harris. Hey, Ann.
Hi, Dr. Kimberley. How are you?
I am doing great. It's great to have you here on the podcast and very excited about what we're going to talk about because it's not a topic that a lot of people talk about, but it's a really, really important one.
Yes, I think so. And thank you so much for the opportunity to actually share that.
Yeah, so I'm going to read your bio just so people can know who you are. So Ann Harris lives in Australia and is a puppy and dog trainer, animal trainer for TV and film, animal therapy advocate, author, and certified grief educator who has dedicated her life to working with animals and supporting those who love them. After losing her beloved Labrador, Matilda, Ann was inspired to write her book, PerPETual Love, Forever in Your Heart, a guide through pet loss grief. Anne is also the founder of the Rainbow Bridge Compassionate Pet Loss Support Group, a new online community where people can connect, share memories, and find comfort in knowing they are not alone. So I would love to hear your story and how you got to this point.
Well, I guess it all began from a child, to be honest. I was, just one of those kids who loved animals. I think I drove my parents nuts with my love for animals. And, as I grew, I had a cat actually when I was 8 who I trained, which, was a long time ago. But of course, I didn't understand what training was about, in those days. But he was, I guess, my first pet. And yeah, my first real companion, and sadly, obviously, my first loss as well. So, and life journeyed on. I had a great childhood, great parents, all that sort of thing. Very fortunate in a lot of ways. And then I became a secretary because sort of what you did back then, which I didn't mind it. Don't get me wrong, but just always had this calling, to do something, I guess, with animals. I got into dog training. And the dog training led from one thing to another, dog demonstration team. Then I started teaching other people, helping them with their puppies and dogs and sort of furthering my education in that area. And then we were living on a small acreage just outside of, or in Sydney actually, which was a bit rare. But I really wanted to get other animals as well. And my husband at the time probably wasn't as keen as I was. And I thought, oh, well, I'll turn this into a business, that'll make him happy. And so, yeah, I got a pony. I'd never had a horse or a pony. I got goats. I'd never had them. We already had chickens and guinea pigs for the children. But anyway, my menagerie grew and I created a mobile farm. And then from there, like they weren't recycled animals, they were all my pets, and a lot of training. My dogs were doing tricks and stuff like that. And it sort of took a bit of an expansion as well because we were doing kids' parties and events and schools and your general things. Then we started doing animal therapy, and I went, oh wow, this is just incredible, because I firstly with my pony, and that was for special needs school. And I was a bit apprehensive actually because I thought, I didn't know much about ponies and I didn't know much about the children either. But yeah, just it was, just beautiful is the only way to describe it. And the way one little boy in particular responded to her and how it just calmed him. And from that day on, I went, this is really something that I want to do a lot more of. So we did and continued on with that, plus, the other bookings. But then, yeah, life's funny how it guides you sometimes, isn't it? But from there, my animals got called to do TV work and film work. Mainly, I think, too, because they were so used to travel, used to people, noises, different environments. And of course, being on set can be very chaotic. Whereas, fortunately for them, it was probably no more chaotic than a kid's birthday party. So,
Yeah. Yes.
um, and yeah, and then I thought, then I started getting asked more things. So I created my own agency, casting agency, and then we started to invite, well, first of all, people I knew, that were trainers and connected with. But then we ended up with quite a big database of people with all sorts of, animals, particularly obviously dogs would be the most common, followed by cats. But yeah, we had snakes, even cockroaches, you name it. It was, and I am still doing, some of that work. But so that was where that got me to. But then life took a turn, and I've been married 27 years, 50 years old, and separated, divorced, moved from my family home, and moved on the outskirts of Sydney so I could keep all my animals. And then that got a bit tough with the mortgage and things, so I ended up making a decision to move down south of Sydney and ease off like the financial pressure, I guess. But very hard decision because everyone I knew was in Sydney. I only knew two people down there, and I'd never been there actually in my life. But it was particularly hard because Mum had dementia, so leaving there. But I was up every week or every second week, and my dad was incredibly, supportive and very close to both parents. So it, yeah, really tough, but it had to be. And in hindsight, it was probably one of the best decisions I ever made because I absolutely love where I live, and I feel like I'm actually where I was always meant to be. But then, yeah, it was like a period of bang, 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 where things just didn't. And then, of course, Mum passed, so that was pretty tough. And then we had bushfires where we were, which continued on, and it was 100 days, I think, actually, in our area. And of course, homes and lives and, yeah, bushland and everything you can think of. So it was just very exhausting too. I think I was just, yeah, a bit burnt out. And then after that, it was only 2 weeks after I lost Matilda, my dog, who I've actually dedicated this book to. So then that was the turning point, I think, for the decision to write the book, because I felt a little bit, I don't know, it's like, I did have family and friends and all that who understood and cared, but it's not like you can openly talk about it sometimes, and other people may misunderstand or minimize, that loss. And I reached out to Gabriella, who'd been a huge support through a lot of these things. And, it was in a conversation with her that it sort of sparked the idea to really commit to writing this idea. And yeah, so that's when it all started, but it still took 4 years because, from that initial concept, I think, to it actually being finished, because after Matilda passed, COVID came, of course, and which we all experienced. And that, of course, closed down my casting business because the whole production industry shut down. So again, that made me make some life changes, and so I got into creating online puppy training as well. And but then I got to a point, oh, that's right, I was doing Airbnbs when things picked up again and people were able to travel within our state. But then I was again burning out, and I thought, no, I am just going to do this book. So I got rid of the Airbnbs, and then really knuckled down and like got up at 4 o'clock every morning, 7 days a week. I've probably done that for the past year, I guess. And then when it got closer, probably the past 3 months, I really said no to a lot of things, which is hard for me to do because I'm not a good person at saying no. But I set myself a self-imposed like deadline of the 1st of March. And the only way I was going to get that done, I think, was to, I just didn't catch up with friends as much, family commitments, things like that. And yeah, so we made it to the 1st of March, and a lot of mistakes on the way, hurdles, all of the, all of those things that come with, I guess, when you ever try and do anything. And I mean, you've written a book, but very naively too, which can be a blessing and a curse. So I thought, well, I'm just going to do paperback, audio, and Kindle all at the same time. And I had no idea, like, just how much work is
It's
involved.
a lot of work.
As you know, I wish I knew you then, I would have asked you. But having said that, it's done now. So, and it's a nice feeling to have it out there. And yeah, thank you again for letting me share and
Yeah.
being here.
So, first of all, I know there's a lot of people listening who are animal lovers. And when you said everything from, dogs, horses, even cockroaches, and, probably spiders and who knows
Yes.
what we can train or have pets
Yeah.
for. I know growing up, my brother liked to have different pets. He had snakes and spiders and iguanas and fish. He raised fish and uh,
Yeah.
bred the fish and sold the fish because after a while there's too many fish.
Yeah.
So animals are really important parts of our lives, and regardless of the kind of animal,
Yeah.
they do become part of our life, part of our family. A being that we love and cherish, and they're part of our memories. They're part of our everyday joy.
They certainly are. They really do brighten our lives in just so many ways. And yeah, of course, each one of them is very unique and each relationship is unique. And I think everyone you speak to has their own special story and, even the funny quirks their animal had and the
Mhm.
funny moments, the
Yeah.
comfort when you're feeling down. And yeah, they just yes, they're a very beautiful part of our life. Or for those of us who, are interested in animals, not everyone is, and that's okay too. But yeah,
Yeah, but they do add so much joy to your life, and
yeah,
for the most part they don't ask for much except for, just feed them and of course clean up after them. And when I was growing up, our piano was in the lower level of our house, and that's where we kept our parakeet. And whenever I would play the piano, the parakeet would sing along and would dance very quickly back and forth on its little perch. Loved, 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 loved music. You
oh, that's
don't forget
beautiful.
those things. Yeah. They, they
Yeah,
just give us so much joy. And you wrote a book. The sad part is you lost a very good friend, Matilda, that, inspired you actually to write this book because just because I've heard people say, well, oh, you lost your dog. And the next week they want you to go and get a new puppy. And I'm like, that is not the same.
no, it's definitely not the same. And you're right. I mean, I've seen it happen a lot of times too. And sometimes people, like family, might be well-meaning and they want to bring another pet in, but the person's not emotionally ready. And I mean, and I've got in the book two things like things to say and not to say, I think, to someone that's grieving, because sometimes they'll say, oh, it's just a dog, just a cat or whatever. And that sort of minimizes that bond and relationship. Or even you can get another one. I mean, we don't go and get another human if they pass. Like, it just so yeah, those sorts of comments, like sometimes people don't mean them in a bad way, but they can certainly come across as being quite, yeah, hurtful to the person who's grieving and grieving quite deeply.
So
Mm.
if we are grieving over a loss of a pet,
Yeah,
what can we do to actually celebrate them or remember them or make it, even though it's really sad and you miss them,
yeah,
just like you miss a person?
yeah.
What kind of things can we do to celebrate or to remember them in a positive way so that we can feel good when we think about them.
Yeah, and that's a very good point because, and I must admit too, I did do a grief educator certification with David Kessler, and I think that made a massive difference because having done that, I learned so much from in myself, as well. So, and one of the things that David taught is what he calls finding meaning, which is like the sixth stage, if you like. And it's a little bit like finding meanings, not maybe quite as it sounds, because it's not like you're okay with the loss or you're ever going to forget them or anything like that. But what he teaches is to find a way to live with it and to, I guess, to honor your pet in whatever way that feels right for you. So that can be many different things. It could be creating a memorial. So it might be planting a tree or putting a bench seat in the garden or lighting a candle, just doing anything that is, I guess, to memorialize them. It could be a scrapbook, a video. I know myself, to do I liked to do a video of Matilda, as hard as it was. I think you cry all the way through it. But, looking back at all those beautiful memories does, sort of makes you smile. I personally have got a little rainbow bridge in my garden because I love gardening. So it's just a little bridge, and we've painted it with rainbow colours and put some plaques on there. And look, it depends on the person too and what resonates with them. But I mean, a lot of people like to write, or it could be a poem, a story, anything at all, or they might even write a letter to their pet. Others might want to go and donate to a charity in their pet's name or go and volunteer at an animal shelter. There's just so many things that we can do. And I think like the easiest way for me and maybe for some others too is to think about like what mattered to your pet. What were the things what were those special moments that you really enjoyed? So say it was going on trail walks. Yeah, you might, when you're ready, it might not be straight away, but you might redo that walk, or it could be the beach or, whatever. So I think I've actually created a workbook as well to go along with the book because I thought I know myself that it can be helpful because sometimes you don't know where to start. And so I think the workbook will be hopefully quite supportive. It's not quite finished yet, but will be very soon, so that the questions can prompt, and it also gives ideas for memorial ideas and things like that. So that once you see that, you might not use that exact one, but it'll spark you, to another idea.
Exactly, because we're all like, unique and so are our pets. So,
Yes.
I mean, and if you even going back in memories to think back about things. So I remember when I actually lost a person, I lost my fiance, and that was
Oh,
the first person that was really close to me. I'd lost a grandparent, but someone that had been seeing every single day. I remember when I lost him, our cat, which was really my daughter's cat, she would really hang out with my daughter. That cat would not leave my side. I'd sit down to try and eat some
yeah.
dinner, and she was at my feet. She'd jump up in my lap. I'd be sitting on the couch.
Oh,
She'd
wow.
come over on the arm of the couch. For the first probably 2 weeks, that cat did not leave my side. She was by me every
Mm,
second that I was in the house because she probably didn't, of course, know the details, but she
yeah.
knew that
Yeah,
I
she
needed
knew
to
you needed
care.
support.
Yeah.
Mm,
And animals
mm,
are so special that way.
yes,
So,
certainly.
do you have any special stories you want to share about Matilda?
Well, one that I think is really lovely is because I was doing the animal, well, I still am the animal casting, but I got a call from a guy and Ryan, and he well, it was not from a production company, which is normally the case, but he actually wanted to propose to his girlfriend, but he wanted a dog to bring the ring to her while they were in a park having a picnic and everything. And of course, I'm thinking, how are we going to do this? Like I haven't met you. How's Matilda going to run up to somebody who she's never met before? How are we going to do the ring, trainer, blah. But anyway, long story short, it's such a lovely guy, and we spoke a lot on the phone to work out all of the logistics. So I ordered 2 beach umbrellas and got one delivered to me and then one to him. And then I taught Matilda to go and target the umbrella. I taught her, in the yard initially close and then further away and then different environments so that when I could give her the signal, Matilda, go to the umbrella, well, that's where she had to go that day. And I mean, we did obviously meet probably for about 5 minutes beforehand because he had to give me the ring. So he gave me the ring. We had this little purse under her collar. I've still got the purse at home, actually. And so I got him to put it in and make sure it was all tightly zipped up and things like that. And then he went over to his umbrella and his picnic and all that. And my good friend Sandra was with me. We hid behind some trees looking a bit strange, but um, and then he texted me and we walked out from, behind the trees. And then I just said to Matilda, quick, go to the umbrella. And yeah, I could see she locked, eyes on it. So off she went. And yeah, sure enough, he got down on his knee and he took the ring and
Oh.
yeah, and because she was like, I guess, a typical Labrador, just full of energy and, what I called her whole body wag. So, yeah, she was in amongst, with all this wagging and happiness. So, yeah, that was one of the very special moments I think I have because, yeah, she made their day, obviously. And then he texted me and I called her back and, yeah, she came bounding back and Sandra and I were all over the moon, giving her big cuddles and pats. And then we got to meet them afterwards as well. So I got to meet her too. Yes, it was a beautiful day. And it was like in this lovely part with the Sydney Harbour Bridge and the Opera House in the background. And weather was perfect. It was just one of those days everything fell into place. Thank goodness, because I was very nervous if it didn't go right. That could have been very unpleasant, but luckily it all worked out. Yeah.
Yeah, that is beautiful. That is just so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So now Matilda was trained to do like, shows or um
Mm.
films, things like that. And then did you have other animals that were trained as therapy animals, or did people bring their animals to you and you train them?
No, I do have a lot of animals, and most of them had done some sort of TV, film, or photo shoot type work. So even, the chickens, the guinea pigs, the rabbits, the ducks were in a theatre production. Um, Pony, yeah, she's done a few things. She'd even been up in a lift, and my other dog, Ozzy, had done, some things, and Matilda, obviously. And the goats, yeah, the goats. One of them was very naughty once and ate the promotional material off the table, but anyway, turned out good for them, thankfully, because at the time I'm thinking, uh-oh. But probably the most unique would be my pig, Coco. She's 13 and a half now, but very highly intelligent animal. Like just incredible to train. I mean, she knows more than any of my animals that I've had, just with the things that she does, rolling out a red carpet. She used to ride a skateboard, but now we had a play around the other day. She does 2 pushes and then it's like, no, I'm 13 and a half, I'm 80 or 90 in pig years. I'm a bit past that, but she still loves like running through. We've got a big 7 meter tunnel. The hoop she walks through, she no longer jumps through, but she sits, she waves, she wears glasses, pushes a trolley, 10-pin bowls, plays soccer, puts the noses the ball into the net. And yeah, but we call her Madame Coco because she's the boss. Like everyone sort of gets out of Coco's way.
That is awesome. Years ago, I had a little kitten called Coco Chanel, and we called her Coco.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that name. So
yeah.
if there are people that they have pets and they thought, "Wow, I would really like to have my pet in a film or, that type of situation," how do they do that?
Look, I'd recommend they contact a an agency like we are, but of course we're in Australia, but in the US, one of the agencies. But it does require, well, I'll speak what happens in Australia anyway, but it's really hard to get a role. Um, and I guess it's a bit like human acting in that way, like a lot could apply and only a few are selected. But the ones that are highly trained, and also probably one of the key things is very well socialized, so that when they walk on set, that completely unusual environment, which can be quite chaotic and busy and noisy and rushed too, because time is important. So for them to be able to just be comfortable with that, I think if they're nervous, I mean, the last thing we ever want to do is put an animal in a position that they're not going to enjoy. So yeah, I would definitely get their socializing really positive and happy and that side of it, and then obviously the skills as well. And particularly with cats, it sounds like you're a big cat lover, is to, yeah, almost, I guess, take them out a lot,
Mhm,
like maybe you would a dog, but right from a young age, so that you're not forcing them to do something that they're not comfortable with. But
mhm.
I've seen a lot of people with their cats on a harness and they're pretty much taking them for a walk like you would a dog and getting them really well socialized, very safely, of course. You've got to be careful where you do these things. But yeah, that's what I would highly recommend. And yeah, just keep trying, but it's not easy.
Eh, and then what about therapy animals? What makes a good therapy animal?
um, Same thing, I think, is particularly being relaxed. Having that calm nature. Like when I was talking about my pony,
Mm,
I mean, she's 28 now, or nearly 29 in September, actually, but she's just always had this calm presence about her.
mm,
And yeah, and I think that has a lot to do with it. Well, I had a guinea pig once that was particularly calm. And, one beautiful lady, it was at a booking, whereas we'd normally take all the animals around, but we just had Amanda on her lap. And she was really happy just to have her there and nothing else. And she even stayed, till the end of the day. And even while we were packing up, and yeah, it was a really lovely day. She was such a nice lady, because we was worried to take her away, and my friend Sandra said, "Is it all right if we take Amanda now?" She goes, because we were worried she might have pooped and weed on her as well. She goes, "Oh, it's all right. I can wash my pants, love." She was just. But Amanda had that temperament as well. I
mm,
think a bit like people, we're all different, aren't we? There's no right, there's no wrong, but yeah, in the therapy situations, I think some animals are naturally in tune for some reason, like your cat was.
mm. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how old, we are.
Mm,
The pets seem to be able to adapt to whatever situation, like you said, you might
mm,
have special needs kids or small children to, middle everybody, and then, even older adults. I mean, there's studies that when they bring animals into like an assisted living or even into a nursing home, that people do better. Their blood pressure lowers, and there's studies about keeping your blood pressure lower for living longer.
yeah, very true. And you see it happen all the time, I think too. And I mean, people in a retirement place, their family have they've got their lives, so they're no longer there, and they may have lost their spouse. And I
Mhm.
really think having, a dog or a cat there is, I mean, it's company, it's someone to talk to share sitting watching TV with or whatever, and probably good for, like you're saying, and also exercise too, because people with dogs will commonly, I mean, they've got that, they need to care for the dog, so then they're out exercising and walking, and that's socializing too for the dog and the person. So there's just so many benefits, I think.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, we talked a little bit about your book, but just to kind of get a clearer idea. So, how is your book organized? Like, what is it talking about, and how does the workbook kind of fit in?
Yeah. Is it all right if I grab it? Because it'll
Yes,
prompt me
please.
to remember things, if that's okay.
Yeah, we
This
want to
is it
see it.
here.
Beautiful cover.
Yes, well, that's actually Matilda.
That is
There.
Matilda, and Matilda has angel wings.
Yeah, she does. A lovely friend of mine took the photo many, many years ago, and an artist I know. Yeah, so we've done the multiple species to,
Hmm.
so that people know it doesn't matter your pet, but basically, I guess the first chapter is really it's not just a pet, to acknowledge that the importance they play in our lives. Is grieving for a pet different to grieving for a person? Because a lot of people have opened up to say how they may have found the loss of their pet more challenging than even a human, that they've known. Making sense of your emotions, because that's talking about or like all of the types of grief. And while it doesn't fix the problem, I guess I found that very beneficial because it, I mean, there's disenfranchised grief, anticipatory grief, cumulative grief, so many different types that it gave me light bulb moments. You go, oh, that's why I'm feeling the way I do. And it's normal. It's okay. So that's that. And then, of course, unraveling a lot of the emotions, particularly guilt, is something that we all struggle with, which I also found another light bulb moment for me because I'd had a terrible experience. I was feel incredibly guilty about, but it turned out in some ways what I learned it's more regret, because it's not like we have actually obviously intentionally let something happen. It's because we obviously had no idea. Sometimes terrible things happen that are just out of our control, but I think you still carry it, but it makes you a little more at ease with it if you understand, it's sort of regret. What to say and what not to say, which we were discussing. Nurturing children through pet loss is a whole chapter on that, because obviously they have all different developmental, I can never say that word, ages. So it sort of lays out those ages and tips of how to support children, whether it be parents or a caregiver or whatever, and sort of age appropriately.
Exactly.
And
Many
then
parents just
then into the difficult
don't
decisions.
talk about it with children, which I think is worse because the children wondering what happened to the pet, and the parents will say, "Oh, they ran away or something," but they didn't run away. But it leaves a,
Yes,
I think you need to be truthful with your children about what happened to your pet.
I think so too, and that's something that is in here, because otherwise, like if you said, oh, they've gone to sleep, or well, it's like, well, are they coming back? Are they waking up? Or then and because their pet doesn't come back, they might be scared that for themselves to go to sleep. It just, I mean, children interpret things in different ways to, I guess, what we do as adults, and I've actually got a story in there about one of my dogs and his passing and the mistakes I made. If I wish I'd had a resource like this at the time, because even though my husband and I were doing it out of definitely genuinely what we thought was best for our children, I think in hindsight now I can see, it would have been better to have managed it a different way.
Mhm.
Um, And then, yes, well, the difficult decisions of euthanasia, which is such one of the hardest decisions we ever have to make. And it's not like it's more tools to help people to make whatever decision is best for their pet
Mhm.
and and their circumstances. I do have a lot of nice stories in here too, because obviously grief is a difficult book.
Mhm.
So each chapter, or most of them, have something that's either a lesson or a story, to support what it's about. And of course, as you mentioned earlier, should I get another pet? Yeah, and should someone else, push on another pet? So that's pretty much what it covers
Beautiful.
throughout.
And then the
Yeah.
workbook would just, spark their ideas on like how to
Yeah.
remember their pet and things like that. So I
Yes.
think that's a wonderful resource. I'm so glad you wrote that because I haven't seen a book on that, before.
Well, I truly hope it helps a lot of people because, you know, just I guess with all the years I've spent, not with just with animals myself, but I mean, most of my great friendships have come through connections with animals, and you see the effect that it has on people. So I'm really hoping that one day, obviously, all of us go, including me. But I really hope that this work, can continue on, and that we just recognise it a little bit more as time goes on. And I'm creating a community as well, so
I was
that
going to ask you about that. Tell me
yeah.
about the community you're creating.
Yes, well, that's the Facebook group, the Rainbow Bridge Compassionate Pet Loss Support Group. It is a mouthful, but it is only quite new, but it will be, yeah, or it is a safe space for people to come and they can share their story, and people have started to do that. And look, you don't have to share your story either. Some people may prefer just to sit and listen, know that they're amongst people who understand, and also receive the resources that we're putting in there. There'll be We've got some free ebooks and things like that coming as well. So they will also be included. So it'll be hopefully a lovely community where we can all help each other. Mm.
Wonderful. So if people wanted to connect with you, do you have websites? Where do they get into the community? Where do they find your book?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Probably the website is the www dot well, perpetuallove.com.au. And the Facebook group is the Rainbow Bridge Compassionate Pet Loss Support Group. But if they look for this image, that is what's on the group, because there's obviously quite a few of them out there as well, which do some wonderful work. And then, so the community will mainly at this point be through the Facebook, but we will eventually also have one on the website. And on the website, they'll find the free resources and things like that. Animal Lovers Collective is our social media, which is also relatively new, but it's there with lots of beautiful animal things. So, and of course, the pet loss is part of the support that's there, but there's just all your lovely, cute, funny animals, and there's dog training, puppy training, particularly because I was specialising in that. Um, Puppy training tips and guidance, and some behind the scenes things from casting, and of course the pet loss support tips as well. So it's a bit of a mix, that one, but that's across TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, pretty much all of them. but but I welcome feedback too, so that I can hopefully give people what they're actually looking for, particularly in any of those areas.
Oh, so now I have a personal question for you. What gives you the most happiness and fulfillment in your life at this point?
Look, definitely my family. I have two grandchildren as well now, and a third on the way. And obviously, my huge menagerie of animals who make me laugh every single day. And I think, I mean, I'm 60 now too. So I mean, I'm very much at a stage in my life where having written this book is making me feel happy too, because the people that have read it so far, I'm getting, hearing that it's helped them. So yeah, that obviously makes me happy as well. So yeah, I've pretty fortunate right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast and for sharing your book and your community and, you know, about pet loss and, how we can get through it and have wonderful memories.
Well, thank you, Dr. Kimberley. I very much appreciate it again. Thank you.
Yeah. So I have one last question before we finish.
Yep.
What is your best advice on living an incredible, amazing life?
Um, well, having learnt from my mistakes, I would say if you have a why or a passion that seems to be within you, uh, just go for it. Um, be prepared for all the things that will go wrong because it does happen. And be prepared to make mistakes, I guess, as well, but I always try not to make the same one twice, but and learn from it. And I think as you do those things, you grow. And when you're doing what truly makes you happy, then everything around you just seems to fall into place, I feel. So I would just say, yeah, you're never too old, it's never too late. Yes, just find you what it is that sparks inside you and go for it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Anne.
Well, thank you. Thank you again.
We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you. Bye.